Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, DC Comics attempted to introduce as many new characters as possible to appeal to a younger generation, adding to the ranks of the Justice Society of America and the All-Star Squadron. Many, if not most of these characters, failed to reach any level of popularity such as their Golden Age peers. One of these was Todd Rice, also known as Obsidian, who did manage to have the right look and the right narrative to have some staying power. However, throughout the years, his backstory became a billboard for cultural issues. His allegiance between hero and villain flip-flopped too often, and instead of relying on the strength of who he was, he became more of a misused sounding board instead of an instrument for great storytelling. Welcome back to the Comicverse, everyone. This week we are revisiting the first appearance and origin story of Todd Rice, Obsidian, and along the way we will discover his twin sister, his true parentage, the addition of his mental illness, and controversy over his inclusion into the LGBTQ community, and see for ourselves how a superhero with so much potential was never given a proper push. But before we begin, we'd appreciate it if you like and subscribe, comment, and share this video out. It really helps out the channel each and every week. Thank you. Obsidian first appeared in All-Star Squadron issue number 25 from September 1983. He was part of a ragtag group of metahumans, given powers through science, that initially clashed with Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern, the Atom, Liberty Bell, Batman and Robin, and then really a whole host of other B-list comic book names. It was here that we first experienced what Obsidian could do: manipulate shadows, fly, and phase in and out of physical form. It was also the first time we met Jade, Jenny Lynn Hayden, who would become a very important person in Obsidian's life once DC got around to telling his first origin story. But after that, there was not much else to this character until he became a member of Infinity Inc., a new team of superheroes for the next generation. While Infinity Inc. did not become the next Justice League, it did give us our first in-depth origin story of Obsidian in issue number 33 from December 1986. As well, if you're a Todd McFarlane fan, he did a lot of work on this run as a penciler. We begin in issue 33, in space. The Infinity Inc. team is traveling back to Earth, and except for Obsidian and Lita, aka Fury, who's flying the shuttle, everyone else is asleep in the back. Obsidian asks Lita if he can ask her a personal question. Lately, Todd Rice has been struggling with being an adopted child, like Lita, but she tells him that she had a great childhood and loves her mom and dad. But then she remembers Todd and his twin sister grew up in Milwaukee, apart from each other. Jennifer Lynn grew up in the suburbs in an ideal home. Todd himself was not so lucky. His adopted father, Jim Rice, was an alcoholic who lost his job, which caused his adopted mother to leave with Jeremy, Todd's younger brother, through adoption. It became the second time a mother had abandoned him in his life. Todd tried to support his father during the breakup, but Jim Rice was a belligerent drunk and could not see how his behavior was causing the family to disintegrate right in front of his eyes. During the final argument before separation, Jim, in a drunken stupor, blurted out that Todd's adopted mother would have preferred to have chosen Todd's twin sister instead of Todd, which came as a shock to the young man because he was never told he had any blood relatives. Todd's mother refused to answer his questions as she stormed out of his life forever, leaving only confusion and anger hanging in the air. Afterwards, Todd tried to reason with his father and wondered out loud if Jim Rice was truly an alcoholic. That word alone was enough to enrage his father, who slapped Todd around and then tried to drive his head through a plaster wall. But as Todd's head came into contact with the solid structure, something unexpectedly happened. His body phased through the wood and underlying insulation, turning black and almost two-dimensional. Todd did not notice this detail himself because the lamp had been knocked over in the scuffle. Instead, Todd's own anger at his father's attempt to almost kill him took over, and as he reappeared, Jim Rice passed out, either from fear or from shock, the booze, or maybe a combination of them all. Todd left his father on the floor and entered the bathroom, still unaware of his own appearance. When he turned on the light, he could then see his body transformed into shadow. Eventually, it receded and Todd Rice was normal again. Then, Todd noticed that his shadow was back on the wall where it belonged, except now he could manipulate it. He learned that he could transform at will, and his shadow form gave him enhanced strength, which he used to punch a hole in the wall where his head was meant to be buried by his father, hopefully fooling his father into thinking that is what happened, instead of the truth, when Jim Rice finally wakes up. After that, Todd turned to the only person he could, the only person he always turned to in times of trouble. The good Catholic boy held his cross and prayed. Todd and his father did not speak much after that night, although Todd did stay with him. In his words, Todd made sure never to give his father an excuse to hit him again. What would be the use? Besides, he needed to find his true identity and, if this drunk was right, find his anonymous twin sister. The only way to do that was to break into the hospital where he was born and check the confidential records for himself. It was not hard. Todd used his new power to turn to an inky black shadow and hide against a wall, fooling the security guard. Then he made his way to the records room. In his file, he found his answer. Yes, he did have a twin sister. His mother's name was listed as Jane Smith, probably an alias, and no father was listed at all. As Todd turned back to shadow to phase through the wall to the outside, he discovered that the slightest bit of light can weaken his powers, this time almost trapping him inside the wall like a nail through wood. But none of that mattered. He had what he came for. He had a name, Jennifer Lynn Hayden. It only took a few weeks to find her. Todd kept his distance. He could tell right away that Jennifer Lynn was raised in a more affluent environment. She had friends. She seemed happy, and maybe it was for the best, Todd thought, to stay away. After all, what if she rejects him? A poor kid with nothing much going on for him? What kind of brother could he offer to be for her? Still, he followed, even sitting behind her adopted parents as she performed in her high school musical. And as high school graduation and the summer passed that year, he still did not make a move. Todd explains to Lita that Jennifer was his only living true relative. If she wanted nothing to do with him, then what would that say about his own life, his own value as a person? So he remained a stranger to her, only calling out to her inside his own head. Then, one night, as Todd watched his father leave to go get drunk, a new voice spoke to him, a female voice, a voice that resonated immediately with Todd. It was Jennifer. Somehow, she was speaking to him telepathically. Jennifer asked Todd for an answer, any answer. Todd pleaded for her to come to him. He promised he would not harm her. Then, nothing. Silence. As the night got old, Todd went to bed. As he put out the lights, Jennifer's voice returned, except it was not in his head. It was coming from outside his building. Todd looked into the night sky to see a girl flying straight for his window. Not 100% sure it was his long-lost sister, Todd did the only thing he thought he could do, turn to shadow, which confused Jennifer when she entered because now she saw no one, where a moment later, Todd was standing right there. In the darkness, Todd eventually recognized Jennifer, only now she was green. He tried to pull away from the wall, but instead lost control and began pulling her into the wall, frightening his sister. But Jennifer had an ace up her sleeve. She released a taste of her own powers. Apparently, being a metahuman ran in the family. From her left hand pulsed green emerald light into Todd's shadow form, knocking him back and forcing his shadow form to melt away, as Todd begged for her to turn it off. He then introduced himself as Todd Rice, and that he thinks he is her twin brother. Jennifer immediately agreed, and she embraced him. Todd answered all of her questions about how he found her, and she revealed that it was just yesterday that, while in the shower, she turned green, the power seemingly emanating from her unique star-shaped birthmark on her left palm. That's when her adopted parents leveled with her, told her she was adopted and that she had a twin brother. Then, Jennifer dropped the biggest bombshell of them all. She believed that she has discovered the identity of their real father. It had to be Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern. After all, her powers are almost identical to his. Todd did not see the full connection. After all, he turned to shadow, not green light, but still, he had found his sister. Todd continued to work as many hours as he could at the machine shop to support his father and himself, and in his spare time, he and Jennifer practiced using their abilities at the high school gym at night when no one was around. For Jennifer, she wanted to become a famous movie star. For Todd, a boy raised in poverty, he only wanted to know how he could use his powers to get money. It showed that even though twins, their outlooks on life were very, very different. One night, Todd was walking to meet Jennifer at her job, a high-end clothing store. When he arrived, a closed for business sign was hung on the door, even though they were never closed so early, and the door was slightly open. As Todd entered the shop, he saw that Jen was being harassed by a group of lowlifes, making a mess of the store and threatening to harm her. This is when Todd's overprotective nature of his sister first revealed itself. He immediately turned to Shadow and palmed the head of the scumbag who had his hands on Jennifer. What followed was the reveal of a power Todd never knew he had. The thug started screaming in terror and pain. Jennifer pleaded with Todd to let him go, but Todd couldn't. He was stuck. He asked for Jen's help and she was able to break Todd's grip with a green fist of light. When released, the scumbag ran as if running for his life. Jennifer then found Todd sitting on the floor in anguish. He was just as scared as that punk. Somehow he forced that man to see all the horrible, rotten, dark things he had done, the people he had hurt, even the blackness of his own soul. The problem? Todd experienced the same thing. It was only with Jennifer's soothing words that Todd was able to shake it off and get up. Soon, Thanksgiving came. Jennifer invited Todd to her house to meet her parents. They were determined to keep Todd's real identity secret. To the parents, he was a potential boyfriend. They welcomed Todd, and for Todd, it was such a strange place, a strange scene, a loving family. They had to ensure everyone was happy, even tolerant, when Todd made the sign of the cross before eating. Obviously, Catholicism was not the type of Christianity practiced at the Hayden household. After dessert, Jen wanted to show Todd something special. They went to her room where Todd flipped through the collection of Green Lantern newspaper articles Jen had been collecting. Then he looked up to see that she had changed into a new outfit, her superhero outfit, green and white, and announced her new name as Jade. Jade tried to convince Todd that it was time to turn pro, become a team. She said Todd could call himself Umbra or Ebon, but Todd chose Obsidian. It was a better fit with a name like Jade. Jen was a little overzealous and thought everything was settled at that point, but Todd still needed some convincing. So he said goodnight and left. He needed more time to think about a decision that would affect his entire life. Now, the holidays are a time when some people, like Todd, get depressed instead of joyful. With everything going on, with everything that had already transpired, he felt lost. He even stopped training with Jen for a little bit. He focused on the one thing that was simple: work. He spent 60, 70 hours a week toiling away. And on December 24th, Todd was working in a nearly empty shop. Only CJ, his fellow employee, was present and goading Todd to finish up and start the holiday early. While conversing back and forth, neither Todd nor CJ noticed that the safety latch holding the heavy metal pipes had come loose. It collapsed, and CJ was buried under a pile of steel. Panicked and unable to find his friend in the mess, Todd transformed into his shadow form, giving him the strength to lift the debris and rescue CJ. Fortunately, CJ would only suffer a broken rib and a concussion, but more importantly, Todd came to the realization that he can have a purpose for good. He can help people like him. He considered it a sign from God, one that couldn't be any clearer if the Lord put it on a billboard. He raced over to Jennifer's to tell her how he felt. He found Jen and her parents eating homemade fudge and drinking eggnog. Jen's parents welcomed Todd with open arms, but when Todd tells them he wants to give Jen her present in private, they become concerned. They thought he was going to propose. Instead, Todd gave Jennifer a golden locket with her name inscribed on it. She absolutely loved it, even though Todd was nervous about whether she would or not. Jen also had a present for him. She didn't have to guess that Todd had already made a decision about becoming a superhero with her. After all, they are psychically connected, and she could sense his thoughts. With that, she pulled out a gift-wrap box from her closet. Todd opened it up, and inside, Jen's version of a costume for her brother to fight crime. At first, it looked a little revealing. Jen suggested that Todd go dark, which he did, and then the look became complete. For Todd, it was perfect. Obsidian was truly born in that moment. Jen then revealed that tonight was the night. She was also mentally connected to Alan Scott and keeping tabs on him. There was an emergency meeting of the Justice Society of America going on right then and there, and it was time for the two of them to apply. Todd told Jen to count him in, and with pure excitement she screamed hallelujah. Her parents heard this and were concerned even more now. Then, before taking off, Jen and Todd revealed their new identities to her parents and formally introduced Todd as Jennifer's twin. Moments later, the sibling duo were gliding towards New York City in JSA headquarters and their destiny. Now back in present day, as the Infinity Inc. shuttle descended on Canada, Obsidian thanks Lita for listening and reminds her that she already knows the rest of the story. After all, she was there. Thus ends the origin story of Obsidian, but what exactly did he mean by Lita was there? Well, glad you asked. Infinity Inc. #1 already told us about how not only Jade and Obsidian crashed the JSA emergency meeting that night, but also how Northwind, Fury, Nuklon, Silver Scarab, Star Spangled Kid, and Brainwave Jr. did the very same thing. And after being rejected in total, these younger, less experienced metahumans formed their own group. Of course, not before Jade tells Alan Scott that they are his children as they exit the building. No fanfare, no long conversations, just, "Hey Alan Scott, we're your kids you never knew you had. See you later." Obsidian's parentage would become a source of pain in later years. Already having father issues because of Jim Rice's abusive behavior, Alan Scott would sometimes fall short of filling that void. But it would be Obsidian and Jade's mother that would hand down Todd's biggest challenge. Their mother was a villain known as Thorn, often opponent to Jay Garrick, the original Flash, and Alan Scott. Thorn's real name was Rose Canton, a botanist who was exposed to a dangerous jungle root that split her personality in half. The softer side would meet and marry Alan Scott, keeping the other side secret from her husband. She would later leave him out of fear of harming her own children. She left Alan on their honeymoon, faked her death in a fire, and gave up her babies for adoption. Obsidian inherited her personality disorder, and that manifested itself slowly over the years into a form of schizophrenia. It would have been a great commentary on mental health, but the storyline became muddled, as Obsidian was then, because of his mental health issues, easily corrupted by the villain Ian Karkle, during which time it is revealed that Obsidian gets his powers from the Shadow Realm, a realm of darkness, arcane energy, and infinite void. He used this power to take control over the heroes and coat the world in shadow, extinguishing all free will, all hope, all light. Of course, this is all because of his father issues, and it took the combined appearance of Jim Rice and Alan Scott to combat this monstrous version of Obsidian, a fight that would see Alan Scott make the ultimate decision to destroy his own son, unable to reach him, unable to save him. Obsidian's story would become a little stranger later on, as the 2009 run of JSA would see a mysterious obsidian black egg appear in their brownstone headquarters from seemingly nowhere. Everyone guesses that it is somehow Obsidian himself from beyond the grave, and then that egg is carried through a year-long story arc until it hatches, and then, quote, unquote, the cured Obsidian is resurrected. Now I say cured because his mental health issues that are blamed for turning him evil are now gone. And by the way, Obsidian also came out of the closets in the 2000s. Yes, he is a gay superhero or supervillain, and so you get to see how this could be looked at as a character being used improperly. Because of mental illness and at a similar time coming out as gay, he goes evil? And then when he becomes a hero, he's cured? And DC even allows readers to believe that includes being cured from being gay for just a panel's worth of art. As Obsidian tells his dad, Alan Scott, not to worry, just kidding, I'm still gay. Some readers found this writing and exposition careless, and in the end, the character of Obsidian becomes one that divided the fan base, where there was a chance to deliver something special with this character in the DCU. As for the character now, he's still alive in the main continuity, but not used very much. Jade, his sister, died multiple times, and finally in Blackest Night, Rose Canton, Obsidian's mother, stabbed herself to death to protect her family from herself, even though the character has been reborn in a new 52, but I'm just not going to talk about that. Bottom line, Obsidian's mother will not be returning. And now, there's a mess left on the drawing table, but a mess with a character that, if treated with more care and given more attention, could have become something very meaningful and very impactful. And there you have it, a brief history of Todd Rice, aka Obsidian. I hope you enjoyed untangling that mess with me as we look back at pop culture and comic book history. I thank you for watching. If you want more pop culture fun, click on the thumbnail at the end of the video for our look back at the most dangerous woman in Gotham, Poison Ivy. You'll be glad you did. Until next time, remember I'm still your reluctant gringo from somewhere south of the border. Salud and a huevo.